All right, and we are live. Welcome to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch 2. We have a special interview set tonight with the Rocket Queen herself. Tonight we're joined by Jen Cohn. Jen, thank you so much for being here tonight. Obviously, it's a huge honor for all of us. We're actually, we have all been Pharah mains at multiple times throughout our Overwatch playing.
Have?
Yes.
You had to tell me when in your Overwatch journey, at what point in your journey were you each Pharah mains?
I'm a Pharah main now.
You're a current one.
Yeah, and I've been for quite a few years. I started out in beta as Rhine, and then I switched over to Junkrat, and then I went to Pharah, and Pharah is so much fun.
She's so much fun. She's so good. I love Junkrat too. I'm a big fan. So good.
Yeah.
Ren.
I've been Pharah for years now. Yeah.
For years.
I had the opposite trajectory. Pharah was my first hero ever played. So
I have heard more stories like that where you start with Pharah and then you move on to others. I haven't heard as many where you move from others to Pharah.
Right. It was so cool just being able to fly and move on the Z-axis though. That was the new thing. So yeah.
For me, when Overwatch came out, I primarily only played Pharmacy. So I would play both roles in particular. And, still to this day, those are my two pocket pick that I will constantly go to. But, I branched out a little bit more. But, Pharah has always been near and dear to me, since Overwatch initially came out. And, with Overwatch 2, now all of a sudden we got all these new players coming in. More first-player experiences are going to get their hands on Pharah for the first time. So, it's a rare opportunity, really, for, a video game out there to constantly have, this fresh set of eyes with the new free-to-play model.
It's true. It's great. I love the idea that you get all these new people. And then the other thing that's been so cool with Overwatch 2 is I feel like the writers, as the VA cast and as the writing team has gotten sort of more comfortable in these characters, the characters have sort of expanded and the writing for the characters has changed a lot. And Pharah, who was very stiff in Overwatch 1, she was just all dutiful and very, piece of great bread with no butter on it kind of woman. Now she's this basketball bro. She's like a frat guy. I freaking love it. I'm having so much fun doing the sessions, recording the lines for Overwatch 2. I didn't have sessions during Overwatch 1 where I was just bursting out laughing constantly through the course of the session because I was having such a good time because she had such swish. She was just, so it's been a lot of fun. That part I think is nice. And all of the VAs that I've spoken to have had some version of this experience where they feel like the writer loves the character so much and trusts the VAs to know the character well enough to really go for it for this time around. So it's been really cool.
That's awesome. And, over the years, I have bumped into a few of the VAs, out here at C2E2. One year I did meet Lucy at the convention, and I was wearing, one of my Mercy bodysuits that I have. And, I was super nervous, when I was in line. But, when I was, 2 or 3 people back, she did one of these, and, she saw me. And I was, instantly, calm and collected at that point because she just made me feel so welcomed. And any interaction I've had with the crew has been absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, you guys pour so much into everything that you guys do for the video game, and in kind, the community treats you guys really like royalty. Every interaction has been spot on, and just seeing the level of camaraderie and just how far you guys go out of your way to engage with one another outside of Overwatch has been really something we hold near and dear to us.
T, thank you. Thank you so much. For all of us, it's been such an unusual and amazing experience. Normally, when you're part of a voice cast for a game, or you don't get to ever meet anyone else who's in your game. In other projects I've been in, I have no idea who else is in it. It's just when I've done GTA, some of the stuff that I've done in GTA, I've gotten to be in a room doing little character stuff. I've done all the radio shows and the TV performance stuff, and then you can be in a room. But generally speaking, if you're a major character in a game, you are alone in a studio. You never see anyone else. There's no interaction. So the fact that we all have gotten to spend all this time together at conventions, doing appearances and traveling together, we're sort of more like a movie cast or a play cast, where we've gotten all of this intimate time away from our families and away from our people. And we've really built these amazing relationships. And somehow, out of incredible fortune, everybody who's been cast is so freaking cool. And we all just hit it off. And our relationships are sincere. Like, we all stay at each other's houses and have barbecues and hang out. And I mean, Lucy's one of my best friends in the world. You're telling me Lucy, I'm like laughing. When I was talking about Zencastr, Lucy and I recorded a bunch of episodes of a show together using Zencastr. So that's why I'm going, oh, I know. We were talking about a podcast gear and what programs, what platforms to record on. We're all very tight. It's a nice thing.
Well, I have a curiosity with that because the difference between some of the other ones you talked about where you're just in a room by yourself, say the lines, whatever, you've got to kind of discover the character, but in reality, you don't have that same ability to pull from actual knowledge of the other characters' actors, right? Does that change?
Not at all. Yeah.
Does that change how you do it? So like if you're saying a line to Anna and you know the VA for that, or you're saying a line to Mercy and you know that, because a lot of the lines play off each other, right?
Well,
and
now
does that change?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does.
Does that change how you do it?
It changes how we do it, and it keeps on evolving. There's like this evolution of the relationships. I mean, what's particularly cool is because now that we know the other VAs and the game has kept on going, and as there, sessions have happened while the game is happening, we all understand the nature of the relationships that we have. And there have even been times where a voice director that we're working with while we're recording doesn't understand the subtext of the relationship that we each have to each other as well as we do. So like, we'll know what spin to put on a line better than the person might, because we understand what the context is of that relationship. And particularly knowing that voice actor and knowing what they bring to that character. Yeah, it does. It definitely colors and changes the direction it takes. But now in Overwatch 2, they're writing to it. So that makes it keeps on getting more and more elevated. It's very fun for us.
Well, and genuinely, I noticed in 2, because the lines are much more personal. Yeah. Like where Lucio says something specific to Diva, or Reinhardt trash talks Zarya, etc. And I notice the inflections are different than previously, as if like you were saying, you've grown to know each other more and more and more, and you're actually having fun, either joking with each other as voice characters or taunting each other as voice characters, right? And you can see that actually play out or tell it. Like you can tell the personality difference in the game. At least I noticed that. I don't know if you guys did, but I thought it was really kind of a cool twist on it. I'm cracking up while you're waiting for the game to start and hearing all your little jabbering back and forth. It's fantastic.
I'm really happy to hear you say that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
It's definitely cool. And I think just what you were pointing out, Tynk, the timing of kind of the trajectory of the game in Overwatch 2's release, it's like kind of also speaks to what Jen was saying, how now we're in Overwatch 2 and we also have the characters growing more intertwined and learning more about each other. Like, I don't know. All I'm trying to say is that the time has been passing and you can kind of see that played out now that we're in the sequel and the characters are more mature and like their relationships are more mature. So, but going back to what you were asking also, like, I'm sure that, that being like doing it the other way around where you're alone in the booth or you don't really know much about your other castmates, like that has to be super difficult for those types of roles. So,
well, when you do that, you're completely dependent on your voice director. Like, you have no sense of context in those situations. Your only guidance is the bit of back information that you're given in that moment. Because typically when you go into a booth doing a video game session, you don't have a script. You don't have any sense of a script or of a history. All you have is this like page full of single lines. And then it's usually one of the writers or a couple of the writers, sometimes the game director and the voice director, who are giving you a sense of what it is you're talking about. And so how well they explain that to you is all you have to go on to create this world. going forward, which sometimes works out brilliantly if you have like great chemistry with your voice director, or it can be really frustrating if you really just have no idea what really is going on, or if it's vague, or if you can't quite envision it. And again, like this is an instance where everybody was very clear with their picture of what the game was. I mean, when I first started as Pharah, well, there's like a crazy story. When I first auditioned for Pharah, I thought that she was a villain. I didn't have any like direction. I just got like some very vague directions, and I was like, oh, okay, she's a villain. Great. And so I sent in this villain audition and promptly forgot about it, which is something, it's like a trick I do. I just, whenever I audition for things, I just forget, so I don't think about it. And then months and months later, I get a call telling me that I've booked this character Pharah in a game called Overwatch. I got a session on my birthday, and I'm like, what is this? Because at that time there had been a code name for the game. It was called Prometheus. Mm-hmm. So I had auditioned for something called Prometheus, but I booked something called Overwatch, and Farah's name had changed. So I didn't know what this was. I didn't know who this was. I thought they made a mistake and cast the wrong Jen Cohn, and that there must be some other voice actor, and they just mistakenly took me. But I showed up at the session, and when I got in there, I said, I didn't audition for this. They're like, no, you did. And they played me the villain audition. And I'm like, oh, this thing. And they're like, yeah, but she's not a villain. Think of her as Captain America. She's Captain America. And that was sort of where we started with Captain America. And then she's evolved since. So it's been a really fun ride.
Well, really, it's more like Iron Man in the sense, you are the flying knight in armor in this case. But, he could easily be perceived as a villain, like what we saw in, like, Civil War.
Well,
yeah.
I was actually going to say, I feel like it is like Captain America, because as Captain America has aged through the MCU, especially, you see him become more loose and more human,
That's
less Boy Scouty.
Right. Like going from Boy Scout to having a little quirk and having a little flavor. Yeah, I think so too.
Nice.
So I have a curiosity, if I might. A lot of the characters' storylines have been dropped segmentally, right? So it's like you have the start to finish. As fans, we don't have the start to finish. How much of that do you get that's not public yet in order to help you shape the character more? Obviously, if all you have is the story blob that we have, it's much easier for you to shape it if they give you the full trajectory. By no means would I poke you for spoilers, but just curiously, do they give you the full trajectory or not?
The short answer is no. They don't give us no, we do not get the trajectory. They give us basically the only thing we get is what we have to record for that period of time for whatever it is that they need. And if they have any like ideas of things they might want to do, we have to record that too. And we have no idea exactly how it's being put together. Sometimes we're able to deduce what's going on from some of the things that are being said, and as we understand what's coming up or what might be happening. But no, we are not given a story arc or a trajectory in any like linear, comprehensible fashion. We just like know we're in situations with these characters, with other characters who we know, and we understand our relationships with them for the most part.
That's doubly impressive that you're able to create that out of such a small amount of knowledge. That's very cool.
But that's like life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here you are, you're hanging out with Ren and T, and like, you don't know what's going to happen. You just know who you are. You know who they are. You know, if something happens, how you're going to react. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And now with Overwatch 2, we have a more constant stream of like hero releases. So we're getting, more VAs integrated into the storyline. They're kind of like doing it every other season, which right now we're running every 9 weeks. So I was just curious, like, what is the integration process like when you are like bringing on some new heroes into the game? Like, are you guys like going out of your way to make sure, they are just one with the family? Like, are you recording like whatever dialogue you have back and forth, like right when they're brought on?
Well, we're like cartoonish about it because the way that we integrate is so completely different than I think how it would be done. Certainly in any other cast. So professionally speaking, in terms of the game, we have nothing to do with how they're integrated. But we all might notice that we're interacting with somebody with a new name as we're recording lines. And we're like, there's somebody new. Oh, who's this? Oh, there's someone new. And we don't know when they're going to be dropped, and we don't know who it is who's cast, and we haven't heard what they sound like, and we don't know anything. And then there'll be the big announcement of who's dropped and who the voice actor is. And then there's like a pack of voice actors who all go like, oh my God, we gotta find them. And then we go and like hunt down, where do they live? Who are they? Reach out to them on social media platforms. Who gets to meet them first? Like, where do they go? I was in LA in the spring and into the early summer shooting a TV show. And I had this great backyard. And when they dropped Charisse Booth being in the game in Overwatch 2, it was like, okay, barbecue, pool party, because we had to all meet Charisse. So like everybody had to come over so we could meet Charisse and all hang out. And everybody knew coming into the pack is overwhelmed by how like there's this sudden like, come join, you're in the fold now. This family inclusion vibe.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It is. Yeah, we have a good time.
I guess how much of the personalities, I'm sorry, T, like the personalities you see, Lucio's personality and Reinhardt's personality carries over, like is that purely just an iteration, or is that actually like what you put in there part of your personality as well? You know what I mean? Or is it purely just
definitely like there has to be some of you, I think, there has to be some of you in that character, or there's got to be some of that character in you, like in each of the people. I mean, I'm thinking of Johnny and Lucio. So Johnny Cruz, who voices Lucio. I mean, Johnny definitely has elements of Lucio about him. There, no question. For myself, I think I am a much sillier person than Pharah is. Like I'm a much more over the top. Like I said earlier, like I'm like a piece of bread with a lot more butter on it. And Pharah tends to be like very good bread, but very dry. So I'm much bigger, but underneath it, essentially, I have like this platform of earnestness and goodness and straightforward energy that when you whip all the silliness away, that sort of is what's under it. And that's been part of what's so much fun about this season, where she's so much and she's so funny. And she's got all of the swagger this season. It's been really fun to lean into that. I've been leaning into those characteristics. But yeah, everybody has some of their thing. Like in the case of Anjali Bhamani, who voices Symmetra, she's always channeling one of her stern aunts. Like that's an auntie thing that goes on with Symmetra. So it's each of us has our own way in.
Cool.
Yeah, and over with Overwatch 2 too. Like we've also seen like the expansion of different like voice lines being added based off of whatever like teammates you actually have within the game. Where if you have a very specific team of like Reinhardt, Lucio, Pharah, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was Junkrat was the fourth one. There's a lot of back and forth between the four of them because she's calling into tech, just the equipment that they're actually running with, and I thought like that was very unique. So we're actually seeing them expand on like whatever roles you're actually seeing within the game. And, like when you're integrating, we now have Kiriko, who has all this sort of like sass brought to it. And, that's one of my favorite things about Overwatch in regards to like getting like the kills within the game is, you have those voice lines where, you're just like voicing off to someone where you're like, yeah, I put you in your place in this situation. And I'm sure you guys have a lot of fun with that in particular. But I was laughing so hard when the community was like latching on to like kind of like the crowd control voice lines that you guys are doing, like between the freeze effects, like fire with like the dynamite damage, and people are like, they just can't envision like you guys like in the booth doing those sort of voice lines, and just like how you would mentally prepare yourself in that situation, knowing that obviously you're in a certain climate already to begin with in the booth, but to like leading to that sort of stuff is like really bizarre.
It has been so much fun. It has been so much play. Like, why do you go into this field? You go into this to play. I mean, you get to go into a booth and like suddenly put on this character and be this thing that is different than you or bigger than you or other. And when they turn up the volume or really just like turn up the volume on who this character is and what they get to do and the nature of the stuff they get to be involved in, it's so much fun. I mean, like I said, I keep on finding myself bursting out laughing in the middle of sessions, like doing a line and then just cracking up. And then we have to like all reset and start and do it again because it's just so much fun. I think you can hear how much fun we're having this time around.
That's one of the things I definitely noticed. And I would be curious at some of your get-togethers because you're recording separately, but you guys interact a lot.
Yeah.
And you know when you say a line that the VA for Anna is going to hear how you said that line to her. And then you got to go, okay, hey, what'd you think? Right? Because like I said that, and I did that whole thing. And then like, you know what I mean? Because you know how Lucio actor is going to respond when you say something. And so you probably have that in your mind. And then afterwards, you're just like, hey, did you notice what I did that? Does that ever occur, those kind of interactions where people are just like, hey, why'd you do it that way? Or, oh my gosh, you got me with that inflection or whatever. You know what I mean?
The only thing like that will happen will be once it's been released or once a segment's been released and you hear the interaction after it's all said and done, you might start laughing because you hear it. It might be unexpected. But when you're actually recording it, it's not like they play you what was said. It's not like anyone plays how they said it for you. You see what the line is that precedes it. And sometimes the voice director will read it in. And if it's a good voice director, they can do like some version of what that character sounds like, which is helpful. But it's really you imagining how would that character say this to me in this situation. And it just requires you to really know these characters, like just know who you're playing against, which again is like, it's much more like being in a play or in a movie and knowing who the people are that you're dealing with. But you don't get that satisfaction that you would in a play or in a movie where you say the thing, they say it back, and you're surprised by how they do it. That doesn't happen in real time. That's only later, much later, when it's all been mixed and you hear it once it's been released.
Right. That's got to be really dependent on like recording schedules and stuff like that. Because if you have a voice line interaction with Lucio and he hasn't recorded his line yet, but he's the first one that speaks in the interaction, then I mean, like you said, you're kind of just going off of the script or what the director says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I have no idea how we would say it. And it's not like they schedule our sessions not necessarily in order that way. I mean, they book us as they need it. And like they might record me saying all of these things because they've imagined interactions they'd like to have maybe in 6 months. And then they'll shelve it, they'll do something else, and then they'll pull it back out and be like, oh, you know what? Let me get Lucio to record this in response to that thing I had Pharah record 6 months ago. So we'll totally be disconnected in terms of when those things are recorded and who responded to what when.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be years and years of getting used to the system and the process. It's a different mentality. It's very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's play. It's play. It's like being a little kid. It's like playing dress up, the way you might with your friends, or it's more like when you're playing alone and you're like in your room, like pretending to do the thing and you say the voice and you got to do the other voice. And it's sort of much more like that than it is actually playing with your friends because it's really you entertaining yourself alone in a room for a long time. But
surrounded by toys.
Yeah.
Playing with
Yeah. Man after my own heart. I get it. I love it. Yeah.
On the line of plays in general, I know you had recently acquired a PS5 in order to do some Shakespeare in GTA 5. Like, how exactly did that sort of project come together? Because I'm so fascinated.
I'm delighted you're asking me about this. No, this has come together in the most fascinating and fabulous way. So how do I even begin this? Okay, I'll start from the start. I, in addition to being a voice actor for all of these years, I also have been a fashion consultant and trend scout for many, many years. And when I started doing conventions, I would go to conventions and found that gamers kept asking me how I found what I was wearing. How did I know to put myself together the way I did? Where did I find my clothes? And I said, oh my God, there's this whole amazing gaming community who haven't been connected with the people who they would want to be connected with for clothes. Because no gamers I know, or not none, but most gamers I know aren't like looking to like go into into Gucci and buy whatever. Like everyone has very specific taste. Everyone's very creative and interesting and has like a specific look and is super open to being like off the reservation. Like it's not a community that is just totally locked into having to look one certain way. People are very creative. And so I have all these international connections with these emerging designers. Oh, there went my light. Okay. These designers, there it went. And I wanted to connect everyone. So I started streaming on Twitch, connecting style creators and style people with gamers and doing fashion weeks. And then the pandemic hit and it expanded and it became more interviews with more kinds of people, creating more stuff that would be interesting to this gaming audience. And I started doing these Bird Mom streams, which are these real talk advice streams. I started doing these different flavor streams that no one else was doing on Twitch. And while doing this famous British Shakespearean actor who had gotten his show got shut down and wasn't able to do his show, went home and had a kid who was playing GTA. And he started playing GTA with his kid. And he said, oh my God, this is fascinating. Look at this. When he was playing multiplayer, he realized he could be in a room with people and he didn't necessarily have to be shooting people and didn't have to be like smashing cars into them. He could actually interact and say things to them. And if you've been trained in Shakespeare, like in a classical way, you know that when he wrote it, it was kind of like rap. It was all super improvisational and super bawdy and naughty and like gross. And when he'd perform it, it was in the round and it was totally interactive with an audience. And what made it so much fun was you had no idea what was going to happen. Like, they could throw buckets of water at him. They could throw tomatoes at him. They could cheer. They could holler. And there would have to be this interaction between the audience and the performers. And the show would evolve as a result. Anyway, he said, this is wild. I'd like to try experimenting doing Shakespearean soliloquies here and doing monologues here. And he would get sometimes blown up and sometimes killed repeatedly. And sometimes people would love it and eat it up. And anyway, it was fascinating and really cool. And he made films of it and he put it's under the name Rustic Mascara. His name is Samuel Crane. He put it on YouTube and like all of these design festivals and magazines all started writing articles about it and inviting him to festivals. As I heard about this, had him on the stream and I did an interview with him in GTA. And this was for me, even though he does it in Vice City Stories, he plays it in LA. And so it was my first time being in a game that I had voiced before. I've voiced a bunch of the GTA stuff, but I'd never been in the game before. So I got to make an avatar and I got to do an interview with him in the Playboy Mansion in GTA 5. It was like crazy outside. And then we went to the copy of the Greek theater and started doing Shakespeare, on the stage, reading scenes from it. And I have a producer I work with, his name is Pronest Ness, their name. And they started doing it. They've never done Shakespeare. And sometimes people were throwing stuff and we were just improvising. And it was so much fun. This led to my friend Sam evolving this project and starting to do more of it and deciding to make a full-length production of Hamlet, start auditions and everything in game. And so, and he said, and you have to be in it. I was like, okay. So it was me and all of these British actors, most of whom were gamers. And we had rehearsals while I was in LA and most of them were in the UK. And I have horrible hand-eye coordination. I'm like a terrible gamer. I'm a really bad gamer. So I would need like help making sure that my avatar could like move around properly, my character. And so this is when I made my kid learn how to play on a PlayStation, so the PS5, so that he could help me move it around. And so we schlepped this PS5 back and forth from New York to LA while I was working on projects and did all the rehearsals. And on July 4th, we did a full production of Hamlet in GTA. And it was sensational. It was super exciting. And so we're going to be doing more of them. You can go on YouTube under Rustic Mascara and watch the full performance. But there's also been a film made about it. That now is with the BFI. And it's been like this very exciting thing. And the Royal Shakespeare Company has now gotten interested. And I keep thinking that this would be an incredible convention event. That if we did cons where people like gamers could come and get to do like part of a scene and come, like we have PS5s on stage and we do some like crazy scene and get to be a character and maybe we'll all get blown up. I mean, when we did Hamlet, our plane crashed, our blimp blew up. We did all of this. It was so much fun and so wild and so unexpected. And there was all of this raucousness and engagement that sort of doesn't exist in theater as it's currently presented. And so getting to bring that art form into this art form in a way that feels really alive and exciting and engaged was a thrilling project to work on. And I hadn't done Shakespeare I can't even tell you how long. So it was really fun for me too, and very freeing to do it in game. Like you can't have the same stories about being stiff and nervous when you're like this weird prostitute character in GTA doing, playing Horatio. So it was very cool. It was great.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, that's wild. And just like the way that as gamers, we're just used to playing the game, but like that's like the meta game. The game is transcending the game, where you're doing something that's completely unrelated, but you're making your own art. You're making your own game within it, and it's awesome.
Literally, using it as a universe, as an environment in which to do this other project was just amazing. And it's really, it's the earliest version of what Web3 art will look like and what Web3, theater will look like, is people getting to have avatars and have interactions and have unexpected performances happen. And it really, it imbues this freshness into older art forms and brings this whole young, juicy audience into it in ways that are so much more accessible and are so exciting. It's very exciting to do it. And it's really nerve-wracking because you just don't know what's going to happen. We had certain rehearsals where we would spend 2 hours with everyone just getting killed again and again and again and again. And so you just don't know what's going to happen. Will we be able to make the scene happen or not? Don't. It makes it much more fun when the stakes are like that.
Well, you want to talk about the ultimate challenge too, of trying to win over that crowd of people to this art form in their art form with the chaos they can bring, full of trolls and the whole deal. And yet you guys were still able to master that down. And I bet you money.
Wait, hold on a second. You said to win over that crowd and this art form. Which crowd specifically do you mean when you say that?
Well, like the GTA crowd's not going to go see Shakespeare on Broadway, generally speaking.
Well,
and in my opinion, I feel like the harder audience to win over is like the Shakespeare crowd to come in game. Like I think that the Shakespeare crowd has a harder time going into
100%.
a game and seeing it and taking it seriously and understanding that it's in fact an elevation of the art. I feel like the gaming crowd was like, whoa, what is this? This is so cool. This is nuts. And we because it was so interactive, we had a bunch of people who would always be with us in game who basically acted as our guards. They were like our bodyguards.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Our snipers.
Yeah. I was going to say, I bet you money you guys ended up have players that actually defended you so you could perform it. That's so cool.
And they would show up at every rehearsal. I mean, and we were doing this internationally. Our team of snipers would always be there trying to help. We had one person who always wanted to fly our planes. We had one person who always wanted to drive our buses. Like, it was very cool. And people were really intrigued, and people who'd never done anything with Shakespeare before, but this sort of made it accessible. It's a way of taking ownership that hasn't existed before. So it feels very exciting and very on the edge.
Well, and the possibilities now that open up, like suddenly you start to think of all these, like your brain just starts to go, da, 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 what else can I come up with? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Really fun. Fun. The harder audience to get over the hump and to get into it are like the stiff Shakespearean people. That's the crew who's like, and it was so exciting when the Royal Shakespeare Company in England, like the originals, when they got abreast of it, because a number of the people who were in the production are these acclaimed Shakespearean actors. And when they first heard about it, they were like, they totally poo-pooed it. They were like, yes, whatever. And then when they started seeing it and they said, oh, wait, this is the future. This is fascinating. This is the future. And then they got on board. And the Royal Shakespeare Company had a viewing party on July 4th where they all sat and watched while it was happening live. It was just fascinating.
That's very cool. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's interesting because, like, obviously, like, we've seen the success of, like, Hamilton being, like, more of, like, the modern take on it. So, like, this would technically be, like, the next evolution of that to make it, more within, like, a certain, like, metaverse.
Yeah. Well, it is metaverse. It's the first Shakespearean theater in Web3. It's the first metaverse Shakespearean production and it opens the doors and shows the possibility. So many people have been so afraid of live theater dying because it's become so exclusive. It's become so expensive. It's become so inaccessible. When you talk to anybody young about Shakespeare, they're, wherefore art thou? And it's so inaccessible and so not something you can touch. So then when you actually bring it to a place where you can touch it and you can mess with it and you can play with it and you can participate in a number of different ways, it makes it alive. And that's the point. That's the only way, the only way that these art forms will continue in the world and the future is if they continue evolving with us and serving us and being something that's exciting and, fresh for people to be engaged in. And so this felt like a next evolutionary leap for an old art form.
It's cool.
That's fantastic. I do know we are running a little over. So before we wrap up, I do want to ask about your newest project that you have coming out soon on Hulu, which is Welcome to Chippendales. I don't know how big of a role you actually have in it, but I know your husband is also involved with this as well as the creator. So what can you tell me about the new series?
Very great fortune of having an adorable husband who created this show on Hulu. And when I was like, so who am I in the show? I have a sizable character. I play Kumail Nanjiani and Annalie Ashford's lawyer. So I am the main character's lawyer at a certain point where they need someone because things are going horribly awry. And so I'm in a handful of episodes helping them out. The show premieres on November 22nd. And it was a joy to shoot. The whole project has been amazing. And we had the premiere in LA. We had a premiere screening last night, which is why I'm in California right now. The show's terrific. The show's great. I don't know. Are you familiar with Kumail Nanjiani? He was in a movie called The Big Sick. He was in The Big Sick. He's in Marvel. He's in. I
think I know you're talking about Big Sick.
Yeah.
That movie. Yeah.
He was in The Big Sick. He was in Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know
so
the Big
Chippendales, Chippendales, not Chip and Dale, the chipmunk guys, but Chippendales, like the male strippers, like, that like, from the 80s when all the ladies would go and scream while guys like tore their pants off and did it. That business was founded by an Indian immigrant in Los Angeles, which is a story that very few people know. And it's a crazy sex and drugs and murder laden tale, and based on a crazy true story, like just bananas. And it was ripe for a retelling and a telling in television. So it's an 8-part miniseries on Hulu.
Very cool.
Now, is that all getting released in like 1 week? Are they doing like the weekly releases? Because I know it kind of varies with like the miniseries that they're putting out.
This one, they are on November 22nd. They're releasing the first 2 episodes. And then every week after that, they're dropping one. So every Tuesday after, they'll drop one. And they said that'll be, so my first episode drops, I believe, in mid-December. Because my first episode is episode 6. Yeah, I'm in 6, 7, 8. But starting, that all begins next week. So we're very excited. And the show is really good and fun and has all of these very interesting, dark social themes, and particularly prescient right now, but is also incredibly funny and smart and human and relatable in weird ways. So check it out. I want to hear what you think. You'll have to write me and tell me if you like it.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to reach out to you. But with that being said, I do want to wrap things up since we are running a little bit long. Jen, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's always a great experience getting to interact with really anyone within the community, but especially the VA. So thank you so much for, just keeping us at ease, making us feel at home. And, I hope, every future interaction you've had with, the Overwatch community continues to treat you, the way that you truly deserve. Because you guys are really, just put on a pedestal for all of us. And we really appreciate everything that you guys pour into this project, both in the past and also whatever we're to get in the future. Because obviously, there's a lot of stuff to come. And hopefully we'll have Pharah in some of the PvE content, which is dropping next year. But obviously we can't talk about that. That's for a later date, So, we're not going to expand on that, but thank you so much. It's been a real treat having you here.
T, thank you so much. Thank all 3 of you so much. I have to tell you, the community has been everything. Like none of this would have happened for any of us. None of us would have gotten this kind of visibility. None of us would have been on this incredible joyride if not for you guys. And you guys feed us so much good energy and so much love. And it's been a joy to be part of it and to be part of this crew with everyone. So thank you guys. And thank you to your listeners, and thank you to the crew. I love doing all the Overwatch work. It's been awesome.
Thank you very much. Honored.
With that being said, I do just want to go around really quick and get everyone's favorite Pharah voice line before we wrap things up.
Oh, goodness. Put me on the spot to memorize these.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, I know what mine is, just because mine's more of an interaction within the game.
Which
I really enjoy the Pharmercy line when you two are on the same team, and she makes a comment about you being the knight in flying armor. The Pharmercy is obviously one of the major tandems within the game. I really enjoy that, but also I really enjoy I keep the peace. Because there's times where I will just interact with an object within the game, and I will hog it, and I will try to push it out of the spawn, and just keep it with me as long as I can.
I keep the peace. I love that one. Are you talking about that new line where you're like my knight in flying armor, and she goes, "That's what I'm going for." I love that one. It's so good. That's a really good one. That's what I'm going for. Really nice.
I like the one where
Do you guys have a fave?
Well, I don't remember the word for word, but where it was a newer one where she was making fun of Torbjorn's armor. There's an interaction between Torbjorn and her where he says something about the armor, and she makes a kind of a dismissive comment about him in some fashion or another, and there's a little funny little back and forth. But the one that I hear all the time is the one with "Then you didn't really know my mother," that line about Anna where someone makes a comment, and that's just the one that I always in my head hear, that you didn't really know my mother. That's like, hear that line all the time. So,
I love it. Then you didn't really know my mother.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is a really good one.
That one just sticks in my head because for whatever reason, with the mix that I usually get when I play, I get that back and forth all the time.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ren?
Do you have a favorite?
I don't have one that comes to mind off the top of my head. Honestly, I haven't been getting Pharah a lot in a lot of my recent games, so they're escaping me. But I'll keep an ear to the ground and make sure I actually pay better attention on that front.
There you go.
Fair enough.
There's lots of good ones though.
I have a bunch. I mean, there's so many of the new ones, and I honestly am not sure which ones are released and which are not. So I'm reluctant to do the ones, which is terrible. I know that they released that like peanut butter joke one that I do. That there's the you want to know the joke about peanut butter? Do you know what I'm talking about? Because I've heard somebody else doing a voice line something with it. Old ones, right? Okay, so we'll have to look for that one again. But I mean, of the old ones, there's so many. I mean, I love Play Nice, Play Pharah is always a great one. And that's easy. That's a classic. Fly Like an Egyptian is good. And oh my God, which other favorite? I have too many favorites, guys. This is like very sad. I have lots of favorite lines for Pharah. I am the Rocket Queen is always good. Classic.
Well, my favorite's the Death from the Above, just because it means I've got my ult. I'm about to destroy the team. So, you know, I like that one. Justice raised from above.
Well, yeah,
hopefully your mercy is talking in you. So
I was going to say,
survive it the whole time.
Right.
Well, that's one of the fun things about Overwatch 2, though. There's so many new places for Pharah to sneak around behind buildings that don't have you cut off. So the entire game, I'm sneaking around behind people and just blasting them. It's so fantastic. That's why she's so much fun in the new maps, because there's so many places for her to sneak, and then you can just drop it even from a back wall. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun.
Tynk, I love this. Oh, yeah. Good.
Oh, yeah. I just go through the maps discovering it going, holy crap, I can go back here. Nobody else can. This is great. Oh, it's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
I just love how good the maps look. The maps are freaking gorgeous.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
I was recently talking about how much I want to go on vacation in Ilios. I'm like, can I please just...
My friend was just there 3 weeks sending me pictures. I was just like, well, here's a picture from Overwatch. This is my version of it. That's all I got. Yeah, I felt substandard.
So funny.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much. If you want to know what I'm up to or see what's going on, I'm on all of the platforms at Hey, It's Jen Cohn. And I'm going to be doing more of the Twitch, the style streams. And I do closet streams where I go to other VAs and other like gaming people's closets and like make them like go through their closet and like play games and like, quickly be able to, put on something in 5 minutes and figure out how they dress themselves and what their necessary items are. So we do those, we do shopping streams, and we do the Bird Mom stream. So if you want to check it out on Twitch or on anywhere, at Hey, It's Jen Cohn, that is where to find me. And my new best friend is TikTok. I'm loving TikTok. I'm having so much fun. It's so silly.
Yes.
All right. Well, with that being said,
thank you.
Thank you so much again. It's been an absolute pleasure. And of course, we will be recording again tomorrow for the remainder of our show. So stay tuned for that to drop Thursday night. But until then, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Here's Number 9, episode 242. We've been interviewing the Rocket Queen herself, Jen Cohn, and we'll see you guys back tomorrow. Take care.
Bye.